In Maxwell trial, Epstein pilot Rogers puts Ghislaine in Virginia and another on plane after plane, ending by Matthew Russell Lee patron song video ruling BBC, Decrypt, Light Read, Radio, Podcast. SDNY Courthouse, December 8. Ghislaine Maxwell, charged with sex trafficking and other charges, faces a November 29, 2021 trial today, after the November 23 final pre-trial conference. Vlog here. On October 29 and again on November 12, Maxwell and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York filed a flurry of motions in limine, heavily redacted. The government argued that trial exhibits are not public and will be withheld. Inner City Press opposed and opposes the continued secrecy. On the morning of December 3, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime house manager Juan Alessi was cross-examined, and a pseudonymous witness name was blurted by Team Maxwell. Not for the first time. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here, 9 a.m. vlog here. On the morning of December 8, Sean, the ex-boyfriend survivor, victim witness Carolyn was on the stand, after a former employee of Mar-a-Lago and then an employee of Epstein's Palm Beach home. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here, 9 a.m. live stream here. On the afternoon of December 8, Epstein's other pilot David Rogers testified and was crossed, without much effect, and then the speedy of the trial was taken up. Inner City Press live tweeted it here, midday live stream here. Also, in this sealed exhibit, do you see that Caroline called Epstein's house? I do. Also, now that we're looking at this, sealed, government exhibit, it says Carolyn, right? Right. Inner City Press at Inner City Press middle. 4 hours. Next witness is Epstein's second pilot, Mr. Rogers. Also, who did you work for until 2019? Rogers, Jeffrey Epstein. As a pilot, since 1999, I was hired in Columbus, Ohio. Rogers, we mostly flew between his houses. From 1991 he had a smaller plane, then a Gulfstream, then a Cessna 421 followed by the Boeing 727. Also, on the Gulfstream, what divider was there? Rogers, a door, always closed. Rogers, I kept a logbook, including passenger names. Also, we offer the logbook as a sealed exhibit. Note, Rogers' logbook, as shown on the screen, has the entire column of passenger named redacted or blacked out. Press question, is there really a reasonable expectation of privacy for flying on the private jet of a pedophile? Also, how did you find out the names of the passengers? Rogers, sometimes we'd be told. Also, would you always know? Rogers, number. Rogers, we were flying to Traverse City, Michigan. Judge Nathan, we'll take our lunch break now. Adjourned. Okay, jury's set to come back in. Ghislaine Maxwell in red sweater sidled over to whisper in lawyer's ear. Finally, jury back in their chairs. Also, Mr. Rogers, please turn in your binder to GX12. Without saying the name out loud, is that the name of a passenger on Mr. Epstein's plane? Rogers, yes. Also, let's look back at sealed exhibit 662, at page 44. Flight number 916, who drove passengers to the plane in Palm Beach? Rogers, Juan Alessi. Also, and this flight? Rogers, from Palm Beach to New Jersey. Jane was on the flight. By first name. Also, are there others on the flight? Rogers, yes. Also, let's move to another flight. Who else was on not disclosed, nor asked on direct? Also, flight 818. Rogers, Van Nuys, California to Santa Fe A&M. Only Jeffrey on the flight. Also, how many times do you remember Virginia Roberts flying on Jeffrey Epstein's planes? Rogers, 32 times. Also, this flight to St. Thomas, were Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Roberts passengers? Rogers, yes. Also, and was there one other person on the flight? Rogers, yes. Also, let's move to another flight. The additional passenger undisclosed. Also, and this flight? Rogers, from Spain to Tangier, Morocco. Epstein and Maxwell on the flight. Now cross-examination of pilot David Rogers. Maxwell's lawyer, sometimes the cockpit door would be open and you could see the passengers, right? Rogers, correct. Maxwell's lawyer, and you did that sometimes? Yes. Rogers, yes. Maxwell's lawyer, you never found in the cabin any sex toys or used condoms, right? Rogers, No, I did not. Maxwell's lawyer: isn't it common to own private planes through companies, one company per plane to limit liability, right? Rogers: yes. Judge Nathan: let's take our mid-afternoon break. What is being accomplished by this cross-examination? They're back, with Maxwell's lawyer Everdell still flaying around on cross-examination. Everdell: Mr. Rogers, you know the real name of Jane, don't you? Judge Nathan: without saying it. Rogers: yes. Everdell: but Epstein had an assistant with the same first name as Jane's real first name, didn't he? Rogers: yes. Note: this is another way of outing or doxing. Everdell: and Eva Dubin was on this flight, and her husband is a hedge fund manager who was an Epstein client? Rogers: I don't know. Everdell: so these trips to Columbus, Ohio, that's where Leslie Wexner lives, right? The owner of the Limited? Rogers: yes. Everdell: and Mr. Wexner is a billionaire, Jeffrey Epstein's client? Rogers: yes. Everdell: and you never saw any farmer in your planes, or your logs? Rogers: I did not. Everdell: after a time, I thought it was later than it is. Judge Nathan: it just feels that way. Maxwell's lawyer Everdell: now Mr. Vysotsky — Judge Nathan: it's Mr. Rogers. Everdell: uncomfortable laugh. Now at the end, more on scheduling. Judge Nathan: I would prefer to not do the charging conference Friday, in 9 days, in case you don't have a case going that day. Given the expedition of the government's case, maybe we can use Friday for charging. Judge Nathan: I'm comfortable letting the defense begin its case on Thursday, in 8 days. The result may be that the jury has, this, Friday off as well. Things are moving fast. Inner City Press has launched #Maxwell and Mystery. Bonus #court case cast coverage will continue. More on Patreon here. On November 23 there was a final pre-trial conference and Inner City Press live tweeted it here, podcast here. Likewise, Inner City Press opposes censorship by the UN, which after it tasked UN Sec General Antonio Guterres head of partnerships Amir Dossal was on the board of Maxwell's Terramar Foundation was roughed up and banned from the UN. Summary here. Quinn Emanuel lawyer's letter Q&A here. Now this, a petition, submitted Monday to the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, filed by international criminal lawyers François Zimre and Jessica Feinl on behalf of Maxwell's 3 sisters and 3 brothers, arguing to Maxwell's partners at the UN that Maxwell's abnormally rigorous lockup conditions at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn are horrific, and thus unlawful and discriminatory. The petition asks the UN to call on the U.S. government to release Maxwell pending trial and to urge an independent investigation into her arbitrary detention. This while the UN active covers up its own peacekeepers' child rapes. This is ghoulish. On November 15, Judge Nathan held a conference about jury selection. Inner City Press live tweeted here, and podcast here. On the morning of November 16, Judge Nathan questioned prospective jurors. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here. November 16 afternoon here. Late on November 16 it emerged that Judge Ali Nathan is being nominated for elevation to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals by Senator Chuck Schumer. She said, "If I am nominated I will continue to do my day job, which means presiding over this trial until completion and handling the hundreds of other civil and criminal matters on my docket." So it appears she would complete the Maxwell trial, but any sentencing? Would she follow 2D Circuit Judge Richard J. Sullivan in keeping some SDNY cases? As noted, Judge Sullivan is still rightly allowing call-in lines to in-person cases. Here, podcast here. Watch this site. On November 17, jury selection continued with questions of seized phones, jail conditions, and the death of Epstein. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here. On the afternoon of November 17, it continued. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here. Jury, pre-selection ended on the morning of November 18. Inner City Press live tweeted here. With so much of the case, and so many of the victims, far from Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, in Florida, the Caribbean, New Mexico, the UK and by private jet in Africa, the lack amid-COVID of a listen-only call-in line during the trial proper would be all the more unfortunate. On October 29, after the flurry of redacted motions, Inner City Press filed formal requests with SDNY District Judge Allison J. Nathan, on document cloud here. On November 12, while Maxwell and Dodge still redacting and a notice that after 50 people, no more would be admitted. Even on November 15, Inner City Press filed again. This time, both letters were docketed, appreciated, but denied. Letter on court listener here. Endorsed letter as to Ghislaine Maxwell addressed to Judge Allison J. Nathan from Matthew Russell Lee, dated October 29, 2021. Re. Timely opposition to blanket requests to seal portions of motions in limine. Trial exhibits. Public access. Endorsement. The court received the attached letters via email. This district no longer permits public access by telephone for in-court criminal proceedings, including trials. The memorandum can be found here. The court's public access orders for all proceedings in the case can be found here. The court has implemented a procedure for docketing filings with proposed redactions and is ruling on the proposals as expeditiously as possible. CDKT, number 401, so ordered. Signed by Judge Allison J. Nathan on November 12, 2021. Earlier on November 12, Inner City Press called into, and reported on, a January 6 case in the district for the District of Columbia, and even other in-person criminal matters in the SDNY. For November 15, only 50 people will be allowed in. Meanwhile, for example, the Kyle Rittenhouse in Wisconsin State Court is on YouTube. While engaged and appreciative on the federal SDNY beat, we'll have more on this. Here was from the October 29 request. Re. U.S. v. Maxwell, 20 CR 330, AJN. Timely opposition to blanket requests to seal portions of motions in limine. Trial exhibits. Public access. Dear Judge Nathan, on behalf of Inner City Press and in my personal capacity, I have been covering the above-captioned case. This concerns in the first instance the flurry of motions in limine filed earlier this evening, replete with redactions justified by a conclusory reference to Lugas v. Pyramid Company of Onondaga, 435 F.3d 110, 2d Sir. 2006. The government's justifications for redaction, docket number 399, docketed at 10:06 p.m. on Friday, October 29. Cites Lugas then says the government also seeks sealing of trial exhibits, which are not public. Inner City Press immediately opposes this. As one example within this motions of limine, the government has redacted the entirety of its argument X, even the title and the page number. And as to trial exhibits, see for example Judge Jed S. Rakoff's order in U.S. v. Wigand, 20 CR 188, JSR. Here, there, Judge Rakoff ordered the U.S. Attorney's Office to make trial exhibits available to the public at large. While this was done, belatedly, in U.S. v. Parnas, it was refused in the current U.S. v. Cole. It cannot be refused in this case. Also, Inner City Press understands that the listen-only call-in telephone lines available so far in the case, there may be an attempt to discontinue them. The court should take judicial notice of continuing COVID-19 issues, including people's understandable concerns about congregating even in so-called overflow rooms. Be aware that the District for the District of Columbia still allows public phone access to all criminal proceedings, even those held in person. That should happen here. The loss of First Amendment freedoms, even for a short period of time, unquestionably constitutes irreparable injury. Elrod v. Burns, 427 U.S. 347, 373, 1976. Inner City Press will cover the trial, and all that comes before and after it. Court case cast and Song I, Song 2, Song 3, 5th Song, November 27 Song and now December 4th Song. On October 18 the U.S. Attorney's Office opposed the request, saying that the voir dire questions should be asked by Judge Nathan, and that there should only be sidebars on sensitive questions such as those that relate to sexual abuse and media exposure. Full letter on Patreon here. In a conference on October 21 on that as scheduling issues, Judge Nathan denied a request to seal. Inner City Press live tweeted it here, podcast here. On October 22 the draft jury questionnaire was unsealed and Inner City Press has immediately published it on its document cloud here, including have you or a family member ever supported, lobbied, petitioned, protested, or worked in any other manner for or against any laws, regulations, or organizations relating to sex trafficking, sex crimes against minors, sex abuse or sexual harassment? Photo here. After the death of Jeffrey Epstein in the MCC prison, on July 2, acting U.S. Attorney for the SDNY Audrey Strauss announced and unsealed an indictment of Maxwell on charges including sex trafficking and perjury. Inner City Press went to her press conference at the U.S. Attorney's office and asked, doesn't charging Maxwell with perjury undercut any ability to use testimony from her against other, bigger wrongdoers? Periscope here at 23:07. Strauss replied that it is not impossible to use a perjurer's testimony, but how often does it work? At 3:30 p.m. on July 2, Maxwell appeared in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Hampshire, before Magistrate Judge Andrea K. Johnston. Inner City Press live tweeted it here. Also live tweeted bail denial of July 14. Here, in the July 3 media coverage of Maxwell, media all of the world used a video and stills from it of Maxwell speaking in front of a blue curtain, like here. What they did not mention is something Inner City Press has been asking the UN about, as under UNSG Antonio Guterres with his own sexual exploitation issues, exclusive video and audio, it got roughed up and banned from the UN. Ghislaine Maxwell had a ghoulish United Nations press conference, under the banner of the Terramar Project, here. On July 5, after some crowdsourcing, Inner City Press reported on another Ghislaine Maxwell use of the United Nations, facilitated by Italy's permanent representative to the UN official Nikhil Seth and Demir Dossal, who also let into the UN and in one case took money from convicted UN briber Englap Singh, and Patrick Ho of Seth China Energy, also linked to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. At the Ghislaine Maxwell UN event, the UN Deputy Secretary-General was directly involved. List of some of the participants on Patreon here. Inner City Press has published a phone of Maxwell in the UN with Dossal, here, but the connection runs deeper. Dossal, with 25 years of UN involvement, was on Terramar's board of directors, one of only 5 directors, only 3 not related to Maxwell by blood and name. The directors, Ghislaine Maxwell, Christine Molina Maxwell, Stephen Haft, Christine Dennis and Amir Dossal. Inner City Press is publishing this full 990 on Patreon here. Dossal has operated through the UN Office of Partnership, with Antonio Guterres and his deputy Amina J. Mohammed, here, and the links to the world of UN bribery, including Antonio Guterres through the Gulbenkian Foundation, runs deeper. More to follow. Antonio Guterres claims he has zero tolerance for sexual exploitation, but covers it up and even participate in it. He should be forced to resign, and or have immunity waived. Terramar has been dissolved, even though Maxwell's former fundraiser, Director of Development Brian Urisides still lists the URL on his protected Twitter profile, also here. But now Inner City Press has begun to inquire into Ghislaine Maxwell's other United Nations connections, starting with this photograph of another day's, or at least another outfit's, presentation in the UN, here. While co-conspirator Antonio Guterres has had Inner City Press banned from any entry into the UN for 2 years and a day, this appears to be in the UN Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, chamber. We'll have more on this, and on Epstein and the UN. Watch this site. The case is US v. Maxwell, 20 CR 330, Nathan. To find out more, please follow the links on screen and in the description. Together, let's make sure justice is served.